Earlier today, the Coke Esports account tweeted that they are back in action and that they have some exciting stuff to talk about in just a little bit, which really got me to do this video because I've wanted to talk about this for a while. I don't know how many of you guys noticed, but the LCS was seemingly unsponsored for half of the regular season this year because we're already done with the first split pretty much, and there's been no sponsorship at all, no logos or anything like that. And Coke, which had been around for a while, was just gone. So let's sort of talk about this a little bit because I don't really have like this investigation or any information, but I think it's definitely worth discussing, especially when you're kind of thinking about like the business side of the stuff. So at the start of the split, I noticed that there weren't really any logos or anything like that on any of the Coke, or I'm sorry, on any of the LCS broadcasts. No one was really talking about sponsorship, and the Coke Esports account basically went dead. So week 1 or 2, I forget when, I reached out to both Riot and Coke, who both kind of came back to me with generic, like, we don't really have anything to talk about, but maybe soon we will responses, and there wasn't really anything to do. But, as the season went on, there continued to be no sponsorship of LCS by Coke or anyone else, right? So let's talk a little bit about. I think it's important to look at this within the context of LCS sponsorship over time. So if you recall, the first split of LCS, the first season of LCS was season 3, now considered the 2013 season. This is when LCS kicked off. And so what you saw was some sponsors that had worked with Riot in the past for certain tournaments come in, and some new ones too. And so the big three, in fact, I think the only three really, were Logitech, Plantronics, and Alienware. So Plantronics was getting wanted to get into more of gaming stuff, and so they were looking at esports, and they wanted to really promote their new Rig headset, which even though there's no longer really a sponsorship that you can tell, the Rig logo and all that stuff is still on these original headsets that they worked with Riot to create. Logitech really wanted to double down, I think around this time, on their gaming peripheral stuff. They started the whole G series line of gaming peripherals and really came in. They sponsored the LCS, and they do kind of like gaming peripheral giveaways sometimes on the broadcast. And then you had Alienware, who obviously is a hardcore gaming computer manufacturer as well. And so these guys, by the way, what within the industry or within the business side of the industry, a lot of people would call these endemic sponsors. So unlike a Coca-Cola or an American Express or a Old Spice or any of these other like more mainstream companies that sponsor all sorts of stuff from traditional sports to uh, whatever, like just general ads on like television. These guys are people that make products pretty much solely dedicated to hardcore gaming enthusiasts, which is pretty much the entire demographic of the LCS. And so that's, well, not entirely, but almost, right? Hardcore gamers, right? And so the idea is like they make a product, and pretty much everybody that's interested in the LCS would be like, I want a good gaming mouse or something, or a gaming computer. So you had these endemic sponsors. These guys had sponsored other teams and other tournaments in the past, I believe. Plantronics kind of new. And so it made a lot of sense that these guys were there. And so, okay, you've now started a esports league, and you've got some general esports sponsors. Hey, that's what you kind of expect, right? But towards the end, I forget when, but Riot started talking about Dustin Beck. People started talking about how, hey, we've got big sponsors kind of chomping at the bit, which made a lot of sense because LCS was an attempt, still is an attempt, and I think is doing pretty well at legitimizing esports, the generic term, but you know what I mean, like at trying to make it so that esports is considered like, hey, we've got a real league that's broadcast out of a studio, like, etc. So it makes sense that you'd start, and the numbers start to get really good and like consistent, and so that's really great because you can start to sell that to sponsors pretty easily. So anyway, yeah, you have you're supposedly trying to get like a lot of these more mainstream sponsors, and by Worlds time of season 3, you hear American Express is going to come in for the finals, I think, and also they're going to be a sponsor for next year. And everybody's like, yeah, American Express, like that's a real big company that they sponsor. They have a huge marketing budget. Like this is good. They're probably spending some good money there. This is a good sign, right? And also you hear that the Challenger League is going to start in partnership with Coke. People started calling it the Coca-Cola League very important to note for later on in this video that Riot did not call it the Coca-Cola League or the Coke League or whatever. And so now you've got these big names, which is great because this is good news for everybody because big articles go out about how in traditional business journals and New York Times and stuff like that about these guys coming into the scene, and it makes esports look like it's supposed to entice like other people because the idea is that if you've got Coke coming in for LCS, maybe you could try to get Pepsi to come in for like a Dota tournament or something along those lines. And so you're looking like you're getting to a pretty good place. So now we finish season 3 Worlds and we go to season 4 Worlds, or sorry, season 4 LCS. So LCS starts, season 4 LCS starts. And you notice that Plantronics, Logitech, and Alienware are no longer there. Now, who knows if this was a mutual decision, if this was something that Riot was like, oh, we don't need these guys anymore because we've got American Express and Coke, and we've got a certain amount of ad space or promotion we want to do, or if these guys decide they didn't get a lot of value. But it's just very interesting because while it's not entirely unheard of for an esports league to have a sponsor show up for 1 year and then take off, like it's not very common, and certainly you don't ever see something where it's like your only 3 main sponsors leave and you've got new ones. So very unique situation, I think. I don't have the historical knowledge of Thorin, but from my experience, it's very unusual. So that's fine. Now you've got Coke and American Express, and actually you also do I forget how long it was, like 8 weeks or something like that, a custom activation, which is when you, instead of like doing a traditional sponsorship where there's ads and all that stuff, you do kind of something special. And this was with Game of Thrones, HBO. So if you remember, LCS kind of promoted Game of Thrones starting the new season. It was really cool. They didn't do that this year, unfortunately. But that was really exciting. So now you've got Coke, American Express, HBO. These are all people that are partnering with you, and you're looking really good. And so you're like, man, LCS looks great, like from a business side, etc. Now let's take a quick detour to talk a little bit about sponsorship and the LCS. So unlike traditional sports, where at least in America, I don't know anything about you other strange countries, but in America, you've got traditional sports, and they're pretty much entirely run off of both ticket sales to events and broadcast money brought in by ads and general ads, and there's some merchandise, right? But the idea is that it's ads and sponsorship, right? The Doritos halftime show, the Pepsi Super Bowl Cup Open tennis thing, right? You've got all these big brands that come in and integrate really in a big way into this stuff, and that's how they make money. Riot, on the other hand, they proved the split that they will run the LCS without any sponsors because, and I think it's very likely that even last year when they did have sponsors that they are losing money on the LCS because they don't look at it as we're going to make a lot of money off of selling ads, and certainly they don't look at it by selling we're going to make a lot of money by selling $10 tickets to a 200-person stadium or studio. But they look at it as like, hey, and they've said this before, we think of esports as a interesting feature to the game, the same way that they would spend a lot of money to create a champion that they would, actually that's not even, the same way they would spend a lot of money to do the Summoner's Rift visual upgrade, which they can't even sell, but it's a cool feature to the game that keeps people engaged, maybe keeps people coming back, etc. It's a feature that they hope players will like, etc. They look at esports in the same way. This is what they've said before. And so in a lot of ways, it's both a feature and also, they don't tend to do too much traditional marketing. Like World of Warcraft is television ads with Mr. T. You've got Valve, who's done like Portal ads and ads for their games on like the side of buses even. Like they don't tend to do like traditional marketing around League of Legends to try to get people to play it. Sometimes you'll see something in another region or whatever, but especially I think in Europe and North America, they don't tend to do too much of that. So this is kind of a way to spend that money that you're not spending on other things, right? So you don't need the sponsors. But either way, you probably still want the sponsors because they help your budget. You can do more cool things. They also kind of help they help. I want to stop saying legitimize esports. They help entice other big brands to come in and support the rest of the ecosystem. So hopefully you get Coke. Maybe you don't need Logitech anymore, but then Logitech goes to another team. Or you get Coke, and then Red Bull comes in and sponsors something else, right? Like it's a good way to bring people into the scene and get other stuff happening. It's just good for the ecosystem. I think probably not directly related, but I really, really want to make this point and point this out because, well, hear me out. So, season three, you've got three sponsors. You finish your first split, you go hold an event in Shanghai, All Stars, right? Season four, you've got two non-endemic sponsors, so even bigger sponsors with probably more money, theoretically. And then you're doing this thing with HBO. You hold an event after the first split in Paris. And this year, you've got no sponsors for the first split. And at the end of the first split, you hold an event in Tallahassee, Florida, right? Which, so again, maybe not directly related, but if you got to assume that the Tallahassee thing was at least partially budget oriented, right? Because if they had an unlimited budget, what would they have held it there? Maybe they hold it in New York or someplace really exciting, a big venue, something really cool. And they didn't do that. So if you've got more money, theoretically you can do more things. That's my only point there. And also just to make another dig at Tallahassee. So you got that going. You don't need these guys to run it, but they certainly help for a bunch of different reasons. So at the start of this year, okay, well, let's talk a little bit about American Express. So at the end of last year, American Express seemed to dip out suddenly. Suddenly and quietly. Like, people got email, because the whole sponsorship seemed to be kind of around the idea of selling this new product, which were these American Express Serve cards, which were kind of like these prepaid debit cards, and they had a whole partnership where you could get RP, and you could make like League of Legends cards, and I think a lot of people started to get emails that you wouldn't get RP anymore, or you had they started charging you to use the card. The stuff logos dropped off the LCS broadcasts, so American Express dipped out. I think by Worlds they were gone. I think. Certainly now they're gone. At Worlds you see Korean Air come in, but not really, which is big. Korean Air is a really big company. But it's still very different, I think, than whatever. And it's just for Worlds, right? Not an LCS sponsor. And you see Coke stick around. Coke actually did some really cool stuff at Worlds. I don't know how much of this made it into the broadcast, but they had a really cool sort of camp out area in front of the stadium for World Finals. And then the biggest thing was the Coca-Cola League of Legends stuff that happened in Korea. I think that was quite a big deal. And so you've got that going. That's pretty cool. But then when the split starts this year, you don't have these guys anymore. And then finally, after first split, you get Coke to come back. And so again, you've like lost all your sponsors, or you've left your sponsors, or whatever, and it just ends. It's very strange. And so it's just kind of a weird situation, and probably not good. I think you don't want that to happen. I think it's bad for the ecosystem when that happens. And I guess maybe let's theorize now why. Okay, so from Riot's perspective, we've already sort of discussed that maybe they don't need these guys, and so they're less inclined to pick them up. Maybe they're able to negotiate better, and so like because they need them less, unlike traditional sports, so maybe they can try to negotiate for better deals. But also on the other hand, I think it's really important to know, okay, so we're going to play this game, right? Where you and I, you watching this and myself doing this, we're the head of a marketing group at a non-endemic sponsor. So like a big sponsor, let's say Old Spice. Old Spice is a good one because of another thing that I saw today. We'll get into that in a second. So we're running Old Spice and we're like, hey, like this demographic is freaking fantastic. It's a bunch of young adults and they are, oh, I want my cool background for this. I want you guys to think I'm cool. Okay. So you've got a bunch of young adults. They're super into the stuff. They've got money to spend. It's all a bunch of men. Perfect demographic for us, right? You go to LCS, and LCS is like, again, I don't know how much they're asking for or anything like that, but I think it's probably fair to say that they probably want several $1 million for all this stuff, right? Because Coke isn't coming in for a couple $100,000. So when Riot's talking to these guys, they probably want a couple million, somewhere around that, right? At least. And so you've got that much money you can spend. So you can either do that at the LCS, or okay, you want to get into esports. You've got this budget to get into esports. You got this money to do stuff with, and you're like, I like the idea of League of Legends because it's really big, really great opportunity, etc. So you can spend that money either on, you have to give it all to Riot, and what Riot will do for you, let's think about what they did for American Express. They ran some ads, they helped push a product, not too much else. They did less probably for Logitech, Alienware, and Plantronics. They kind of gave them some exposure, but it's not like, again, you don't have like the casters drinking Coca-Cola on air. They're not, casters aren't, their personalities aren't doing stuff where they're like creating ads for you or stuff like that. It's, you're not naming your tournament after Coke. It's the Challenger League. It's not Coke League. And then okay, so you've got this couple million, or you can go and you can say, hey TSM and Cloud9, we will give each of you 700,000 to be a huge sponsor for you guys. You guys do a ton of stuff with us, create content with us, and we do all this cool stuff. You push our products. We do all these cool things over the course of the year, and you really appreciate us because we're giving you a lot of money. And then, hey, I've still got some extra money, so let's sponsor a up and coming challenger tournament because it doesn't cost that much. Or let's do some integration with some streamers. Or let's give some of that money to Twitch and Azubu, and they can run ads across a lot of the stuff anyway. So I think one thing to consider is that the LCS might not be like a very good value proposition for people. I mean, it's certainly nice if you've got a ton of money to only have to manage one relationship and only do one thing with the LCS rather than having to do a bunch of this different stuff. But I don't know. I think that I would actually probably give the money to these other guys because you're probably going to get a lot more exposure and a lot of cool stuff going on there. I think that might be the way to go. So it's just an interesting topic, this whole sponsorship thing. It's strange that now we're in year three and we're still just. It seems like the LCS is just managing to keep kind of the sponsors that they had before. They've only carried one over from all this time, and even then, it took like half a year to sign them. Anyway, I'm interested in hearing what you guys think is the reason here. Is this an issue at all? Should we be concerned? Is this just sort of natural thing? Love to sort of start a discussion around this. So anyway, thanks for watching. You can check out the rest of my coverage of all things LCS over at gamespot.com/LOL.